Marcus Sullivan checked his phone for the 5th time, frowning at the empty chair across from him. His business partner had set him up on this blind date, insisting that the CEO of Sullivan Enterprises needed to remember there was more to life than quarterly earnings and board meetings. The reservation was 4-7 at La Maison, the upscale French restaurant downtown. It was now 7:45, and there was no sign of his date at 34. Marcus had built his tech company from a college startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. He had everything he'd worked for: success, wealth, respect. What he didn't have was someone to share it with, someone who saw him as Marcus rather than a portfolio to access. He signaled the waiter. "I think I've been stood up. Can I get the check for the wine?" "Of course, sir." "I'm very sorry." As Marcus prepared to leave, a woman rushed into the restaurant, clearly flustered. She wore a red dress that was elegant, but not designer, and she carried a worn leather bag that looked like it had seen better days. Her blonde hair was styled carefully, but a few strands had escaped, giving her a slightly disheveled appearance. She approached the hostess stand, and Marcus heard her say, "I'm here to meet someone. The name should be under Bradley." The hostess checked her list and shook her head. "I'm sorry, we don't have a reservation under that name for this evening." The woman's face fell. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages with growing distress. "But he said 7 o'clock at La Maison." "I'm sure he said La Maison." "Ma'am, there's another French restaurant called La Maison on the east side of town. Perhaps your party is waiting there." The woman checked her phone again. "I don't have enough for an Uber across town right now. I budgeted for this dinner, but not for extra transportation." Oh God, this is a disaster. Marcus found himself standing up and approaching them before he'd fully thought it through. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear. I'm actually in the same situation, stood up by my own date. Would you like to sit down and commiserate?" "My treat." The woman looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and desperation. "I don't even know you." "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. "And you're clearly having as bad an evening as I am. We're both already dressed up, already here, and both dateless. Seems like we could at least have a good meal out of it." She studied him for a long moment, and Marcus could see her weighing her options. Finally, she shook his hand. "I'm Sophia, and yes, I'd appreciate that. Thank you." They sat down at his table, and the waiter brought fresh menus. Marcus watched as Sophia's eyes widened at the prices. "Please, order whatever you'd like," Marcus said. "I insist." "This is too expensive," Sophia said quietly. "I can't let you spend this much on a stranger." "Then let's not be strangers," Marcus suggested. "Tell me about yourself. What do you do?" Sophia relaxed slightly. "I'm a teacher, 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. I've been there for 6 years now." "What about you?" "I work in tech," Marcus said, deliberately vague. "Software development, that kind of thing." Over dinner, they talked easily. Sophia told him about her students, about the little boy who'd finally learned to read after struggling all year, about the girl who'd stood up to a bully. She spoke with passion and purpose about education, about the challenges of teaching in underfunded schools, about buying supplies with her own money because the district budget couldn't cover basics. "I know it sounds ridiculous to people in the private sector," Sophia said, twirling her wine glass. "Why stay in a job that pays so little and demands so much? But when a child finally understands something they've been struggling with, when you see that light bulb moment, it's worth everything." Marcus found himself genuinely engaged in a way he hadn't been on a date in years. Sophia wasn't impressed by his expensive watch or the upscale restaurant. She didn't ask what he did or tried to steer the conversation toward money or status. She just talked about things that mattered to her and listened when he shared his own thoughts. "What about you?" Sophia asked. "Do you enjoy your work?" Marcus considered the question. "I used to. I built the company from nothing, and there was this excitement in creating something new. Solving problems, building a team. But somewhere along the way, it became about growth targets and shareholder value and competition. I forgot why I started in the first place. That sounds lonely, Sophia observed. It is, Marcus admitted, surprised by his own honesty. Success is supposed to feel like something, but mostly it just feels empty, like I'm checking boxes on some list I didn't even write. They talked for 3 hours, long after their plates had been cleared. When the check finally came, Marcus paid it without letting Sophia see the total, knowing it would make her uncomfortable. "Thank you for this," Sophia said as they prepared to leave. "You turned what could have been a humiliating evening into something really lovely. Can I drive you home?" Marcus offered. "It's late. I can take the bus," Sophia said. "Please," Marcus insisted. "It's the least I can do after you saved me from eating alone." In his car, a modest sedan he kept for occasions when he didn't want attention, they continued talking. Sophia directed him to a small apartment building in a working-class neighborhood, the kind of place Marcus's security team would have vetoed if they'd known. "This is me," Sophia said as he pulled up. She hesitated, then added, "Would you want to do this again sometime? On purpose this time, not as accident victims." Marcus smiled. "I'd like that very much." Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Sophia went on actual dates. He continued to downplay his career, describing himself as a software developer rather than a CEO. He drove his modest car, wore casual clothes, and met her in normal restaurants instead of the upscale establishments he usually frequented. It wasn't entirely dishonest, he told himself. He did develop software, or at least he had before his company got so large, and he wanted to know if Sophia could like him for himself, not for his money. He fell for her completely. She was brilliant, compassionate, funny, and utterly without pretense. She introduced him to her world: school fundraisers where she volunteered, community centers where she tutored kids for free, the small joys of a life built around purpose rather than profit. "I've never met anyone like you," Marcus told her one evening as they walked through the park after a community theater. Its performance she'd insisted he'd enjoy. "You mean poor?" Sophia teased. "Tommy genuine," Marcus corrected. "You don't want anything from me. You're not trying to impress me or manipulate me. You're just yourself." "Why wouldn't I be myself?" Sophia asked, puzzled. Because everyone wants something, Marcus thought. But he didn't say it aloud. 2 months into their relationship, everything fell apart. Sophia had been complaining about the school district's decision to cut funding for arts programs. "There's this foundation that donates to schools," she'd said. "The Sullivan Foundation. They fund music and art programs, but my principal says we're not prestigious enough for them to consider us. Like kids in poor neighborhoods don't deserve creativity." Marcus had gone very still. The Sullivan Foundation was his family's charitable organization, established by his parents and now run by him as part of Sullivan Enterprises community outreach. The decision about which schools to fund was made by a committee, but he had final approval. "What if I could help?" Marcus said carefully. "I might know someone who knows someone." "Really?" "Marcus, that would be amazing. These kids need art. They need music. It's how some of them process their world." Kes made a call the next day. Within a week, Riverside Elementary received notice that they'd been approved for a significant grant from the Sullivan Foundation. Sophia was ecstatic, calling Marcus to share the news. "You must have connections I didn't know about," she said, laughing with joy. "We're getting instruments for the music program and supplies for art class. The kids are going to be so excited." "I'm glad I could help," Marcus said, feeling the lie of omission weighing on him. The truth came out 2 weeks later, in the worst possible way. Sophia had invited Marcus to the school assembly where they'd announced the grant. He'd tried to decline, knowing his presence would raise questions, but she'd been so excited to share this moment with him that he couldn't refuse. The principal gave a speech about the Sullivan Foundation's generosity, and then, to Marcus's horror, Kay announced, And we're especially fortunate to have with us today the founder, K, and CEO of Sullivan Enterprises and the Sullivan Foundation, Mr. Marcus Sullivan, who made this grant possible. Every head in the auditorium turned to look at the audience. The principal scanned the crowd, clearly expecting someone in a suit. Her eyes passed right over Marcus in his casual clothes. "Is Mr. Sullivan not here?" she asked, confused. That's when Sophia, sitting beside Marcus, went very still. She turned to look at him, recognition and betrayal dawning in her eyes. "Marcus," she whispered. "What is she talking about?" There was no way out but the truth. Marcus stood up, every eye now on him. "I'm here. I apologize for the confusion." The auditorium erupted in whispers. The principal rushed over, flustered and apologetic. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you. If I'd known you were attending, we would have prepared proper recognition." Sophia stood abruptly and walked out. Marcus followed her, catching up in the parking lot. "You lied to me," she said, her voice shaking. "For 2 months, you lied to me." "I didn't lie," Marcus protested. "I just didn't tell you everything." "You said you worked in software development," Sophia said. "You drove a cheap car. You dressed like a normal person. You let me worry about paying for coffee when you're a billionaire. Why? Because everyone wants something from Marcus Sullivan, the billionaire," Marcus said desperately. "But you wanted to know Marcus, the person. I needed to know if you could care about me without the money. So you tested me." Sophia's voice rose. "You played some kind of game to see if I was genuine enough. Do you have any idea how insulting that is?" "That's not what I meant," Marcus said. "What about the grant?" Sophia demanded. "Did we earn that, or was that you buying your way out of honesty?" "God, Marcus, those kids were so excited, and now I have to wonder if we only got that money because I'm sleeping with you." "No," Marcus said firmly. "Your school deserved that grant. I looked at your application. Your programs are excellent. Your need is genuine. The committee would have approved it regardless." "But they didn't approve it regardless," Sophia said. "They approved it because you made a call. You used your power to give us something, and you didn't tell me, and now I can never know if it was merit or manipulation." "Sophia, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Sophia asked, tears streaming down her face. "That you're so rich and so paranoid about gold diggers that you had to spy on me to make sure I was worth your time. That you thought the only way I'd value you was if I didn't know who you really were. What does that say about what you think of me, Marcus? What does that say about what you think of yourself?" She got in her car and drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot of a school he'd donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to, feeling more alone than he'd ever felt in his life. Over the next few weeks, Marcus tried everything to reach Sophia. She blocked his number, returned his gifts, and refused to see him. The school kept the grant because she wouldn't punish her students for his mistakes. But she wanted nothing to do with him. Marcus threw himself back into work, but it was hollow now. Board meetings felt pointless. Profit reports meant nothing. He'd had something real, something genuine, and he destroyed it with his inability to trust. 3 months after their breakup, Marcus sat in his office late at night, staring at the city lights, when his assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, there's a teacher here to see you, a Ms. Sophia Hayes. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." Marcus's heart leaped. "Send her in." Sophia walked into his office, and Marcus drank in the sight of her. She looked tired but determined. "I'm not here to get back together," she said before he could speak. "I'm here because I realized something, and I needed to say it to your face." "Okay," Marcus said carefully. "You were wrong to lie to me," Sophia said. "You should have trusted me with the truth from the beginning. But I was also wrong to walk away without trying to understand why you did it." She sat down across from his desk. "I've spent 3 months being angry at you for not trusting me, but I never stopped to think about what it must be like to be you. To have people only see your money, to never know if someone likes you or likes what you can give them. That must be incredibly lonely. It is, Marcus said quietly. But here's the thing, Sophia continued. That loneliness doesn't excuse what you did. You could have told me early on, after our first date, after our second. You could have said, I need to tell you something, and trusted me to see you as Marcus, rather than as your bank account. Instead, you made the choice for me. You decided I wasn't strong enough or trustworthy enough to handle the truth. You're right, Marcus said. I'm sorry, Sophia. I'm so sorry. I know you are, Sophia said. But sorry isn't enough. If we were going to try again, if I were even considering that, I'd need to know that you understand why what you did was wrong. Not just that it hurt me, but that it was fundamentally disrespectful. You treated me like a test subject instead of a partner. I understand, Marcus said, and you're absolutely right. I was so focused on protecting myself that I didn't consider what I was taking from you. The choice to know who you were dating. The ability to make an informed decision about our relationship. Sophia nodded slowly. I've been thinking a lot about that night we met. The wrong restaurant. Both of us stood up, deciding to have dinner together anyway. That was real, Marcus. We were both just two people who'd been disappointed, and we found something good in an unexpected place. It was real, Marcus agreed. But everything after that was built on a lie of omission, Sophia said. And I can't build a relationship on that foundation. So I came here to tell you that I can forgive you, but I can't be with you. Not as things are. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all? Sophia stood up. Figure out who you are beyond your money, Marcus. Not by hiding it or pretending it doesn't exist, but by building a life where it's part of you, but not all of you. The man I fell for wasn't pretending to be poor. He was being authentic about what mattered to him. Find that person again, but this time without the lies. She walked to the door, then paused. And for what it's worth, I did love you. The real you, not the money or the company. I just needed you to trust that. After she left, Marcus sat alone in his office for a long time. Then he made some decisions. He stepped back from day-to-day operations at Sullivan Enterprises, appointing a co-CEO to share responsibilities. He started volunteering at schools, not through foundation grants, but physically showing up to tutor kids in coding and technology. He reconnected with the reasons he'd started his company in the first place, solving problems, creating useful things, making a difference. 6 months later, he ran into Sophia at a school where they were both volunteering. She was teaching an after-school art program. He was running a coding club. Hi, he said simply. Hi, she replied. They talked carefully at first, then with growing ease. She told him about her students' progress. He told her about the changes he'd made in his life, about learning to be Marcus Sullivan, the person, instead of Marcus Sullivan, the CEO. I'm not asking you to take me back, Marcus said, but I want you to know that you were right about everything. And I've been working on being the kind of person who deserves your trust. Sophia smiled slightly. I can see that. The kids in your coding club love you, you know? They talk about Mr. Marcus, who explains things in ways that make sense. They're great kids, Marcus said. Smart, creative, full of potential. So Sophia said, there's this teacher appreciation dinner next month. Very casual, no speeches or foundations or grants. Just teachers getting together to commiserate about the school year. Would you want to come with me? As my date, not as CEO Marcus Sullivan or benefactor Marcus Sullivan, just as Marcus. I'd love that, Marcus said, his heart soaring. This time, they built their relationship on truth. Sophia met his world, and he met hers, and they found a balance that worked. When they married a year later, they chose a small ceremony at Riverside Elementary, surrounded by students and teachers, rather than business associates and society figures in his vows. Marcus said, I spent years building success, and I was successful by every measure except the one that mattered. Then I ended up at the wrong restaurant on a night when everything went wrong. I met someone who showed me what it meant to build a life that actually mattered. Sophia, you taught me that trust is a gift, not a test. That authenticity means being honest even when it's hard. That the richest life isn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we build and the difference we make. Thank you for giving me a second chance to get it right. Sometimes, late at night, when they were both grading papers and reviewing reports side by side, Sophia would look up and say, "I'm glad you waited at the wrong restaurant." And Marcus will reply, "Best mistake I ever made." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of second chances. Hard-won trust and love that requires honesty to flourish. Leave a comment about learning to be authentic in relationships, or about times when honesty was harder but more important than protection. Share your thoughts on building connections based on trust rather than tests. Remember, love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trust. The right person won't need to be tested to prove their worth. They'll need to be trusted to show their truth.